years. I'm officially the longest serving member of staff in my school. I know I don't look it, but I am. And I'm feeling that as well. I'm feeling old. Teaching ages you dreadfully anyway, doesn't it? But I mean, I have nothing but utter dread now if we have a staff meeting in an EYFS classroom, and I've got to sit on one of those little chairs. I've got the knees of a 90-year. I point blank refuse to do anything on the carpet now, just because I can't get myself back up. But yeah, for the past few years, I've been working at my school part-time and then doing this sort of thing part-time. So I always like to think of my training as being quite unique in that the training you get from me today is from someone who's still in the classroom doing it. So everything I share with you is what I'm doing week in, week out in my school. So obviously we've got the Q&A a little bit later, and by all means ask as many questions, excuse me, ask as many questions as you like, whether it's related to the content I'm going to share or just anything sort of general ICT, computing, anything like that, because we've only sort of got the best part of an hour. So I'm only going to be able to fit in so much. If there are any questions off the back of today, quickest way of getting in touch will be through my social media, Facebook, Instagram. Drop me a message on there and I'll try my best to get back to you. I'll also mention my website here. So my website, mrpict.com, has been going for a few years now as a way in which you can carry on the learning journey off the back of the training. Because I know what sessions like this are like. Hopefully you'll find it inspiring, but trying to remember everything, or obviously I'm not going to be able to fit everything in to this session. But if you go on my website, there's over 1,000 bite-sized step-by-step tutorial videos for different apps and ideas. There are over 70 topic pages. So whatever topic you're doing in class, the likelihood is there'll be around 10 to 15 tech-inspired ideas linked to that topic. There's also the scheme of work for computing, which I'll touch upon in a second, and also the knowledge progression document. Now, because you've been on the training today, we do a little deal, whereas if you want to sign up to the website as a school, we do a half price whole school subscription for the first year for anyone who's been on the training. So if you do want to take advantage of that, head to the website. All the details are there. Now, I'm just going to touch upon this because I was sort of umming and ahhing about what to sort of cover tonight, with it only being an hour and there's not too much time. So how do I make it relevant, useful, and so on? And I'm just going to start here with computing. And in the previous session, I sort of talked a little bit about how we deliver computing in our school, how it's broken down into 3 strands: computer science, information technology, digital literacy. And in that session, I think you should still be able to access the first session that I did. I went on to share a couple of resources around digital literacy, which is all your e-safety, online safety, and so on. Now, what you might notice is that with your computer science, I've also now added in a strand around artificial intelligence. And that's going to be the main focus of tonight, right? And I'm going to get into more of it in a second. But what I've tried to do with this knowledge progression document is essentially cover everything, right? Make it as comprehensive as possible. Now, that's not to say if you decide to give it a look and give it a go, you have to cover absolutely everything, because the chances are you won't be able to, because there's only an hour's computing lesson each week and there's so many objectives. What I've tried to do with this is just make it as comprehensive so that you can then adapt it to fit the needs of your school, depending on what technology you've got access to. So if you are a school that doesn't have as many iPads, or you're only Chromebook schools, you will find certain aspects quite limiting. For example, the augmented reality and virtual reality strand there can't really be done without iPads, which is fine because you can just leave that one out and then just cover what you can. So what we say with this is is just to adapt it to fit the needs of what you've got access to. But I'll also touch upon the scheme of work on my website that links to it as well, because I feel computing tends to be a weak area of the curriculum for a lot of schools. And I know there are some computing schemes out there, and I'm not, name and shame any of them, but what I've seen with quite a few of the computing schemes of work, and what initially inspired me to create this, was that a lot of what these schemes of work are asking children to create and make are just dull and boring. And I just think with where we are with technology and some of the things we can do through this tech, it should be exciting. It should be, you know, something really engaging for the children. And so what I've tried to do with my scheme of work is just make it as innovative as possible. And so the idea with this is that children are going to come away from these projects with the knowledge of different tech tools that they can then apply across the curriculum to share their understanding of different topics, right? So there's a sort of standard approach, DARES, where each letter stands for a different part of the project, part of the approach. And I'll just whiz through it just to see what you think. So the D stands for design, right? So you've got to see programming especially as a two-step process. It's not a case of just simply writing code, jumping on a computer and writing some code. There's got to be a reason or a problem that code is going to solve. So this is where the design element comes in. So just to give you a little example, let's say we choose the topic where I throw up a Marvel film clip and it's Iron Man flying through the New York. Children, how do you think that special effect was created? It was made using a technique called green screen. Okay, so over the next few computing lessons, we're going to have a go at creating our own green screen special effect videos. Now, to do that, we are going to use an app called Doing Green Screen. So I will then give children the time to tinker with that app. So they have time to explore and dare I say it, play with the app. And then once they've had time to understand how the app works and what they can do with it, they can then plan or sort of write their algorithm for what they're going to do. So you get a project plan that the children can follow if you wish. If you are going to use this, I recommend doing it tight so you can embed some of that word processing within there. And then that moves on to the A, which is apply. So the children then put their plan into practice. They have a go at creating, making, producing content, using the app and what they've planned. And then that leads on to the R, which is refine. So the children are given the opportunity to sort of look at what they've done and think of ways to make it better. So if it's a computer science project, they can do a lot of debugging here. If it's a video type project with a green screen, we can look at adding titles in, soundtracks, just enhancing it to make it the best it can possibly be. The E then stands for evaluate, which is where the children reflect on their finished outcomes, compare it to their initial plans and consider ways in which they can make it better, whatever it might be. And then the S and again, there's an evaluation form that the children can follow. And then the S stands for share, which is where the children, if we are going to share this online, how do we do that safely? How do we do it responsibly? So we can embed some of the digital literacy curriculum within that. Now, the only negative sort of feedback I've had with this scheme of work is that some schools will say to me, yeah, but Mr. P, it's not prescriptive enough. You're not telling us exactly what we need to cover in each individual lesson. And I'll say, yeah, I know, because I don't feel I can write a lesson plan for year 5, which is accessible to every year 5 child in the whole country. You know, within the projects, you have everything you need, but there has to be an element of flexibility. Some year 5 classes might get through the project in 4 weeks. Some might need 6 weeks. It doesn't really matter. You know your children. It may well be that the design element takes 2 lessons because you're going to do a lesson on tinkering, a lesson on planning. The apply and refine might be done in 1 lesson. That's absolutely fine. You can be flexible. But we sort of say a project per half term, and there are 13 projects to choose from. So you can then just choose 6 to do over the year. If you find you get through the project in 4 out of your 6 lessons that half term, the other 2 lessons can be used to cover some more of the digital literacy with some of the resources I shared in the session last year. So that's a little bit of an overview of the scheme of work and the computer computing curriculum, but I was sort of thinking about what would be useful for you guys to access. And given everything that's going on at the minute, I thought I'd take a bit of time to talk about what is likely to be the next industrial revolution we're going to go through, and talk about AI and artificial intelligence and where I feel that fits in, and share some resources that you can use as a teacher, but also use with your pupils. Now, the problem with the computing curriculum, and even though I've just shared that computing curriculum based on the national curriculum written in 2014, is that we are always at risk of teaching a history of computing, because things move so quickly. We almost feel, and that's one downside with teaching computing, is as soon as you feel like you're on top of a computing curriculum, a new thing comes along and you think, oh, we're going to have to teach about that as well. Now, if we think about this computing curriculum we're teaching, when it was first introduced in 2014, that was the right thing to do. Previously, we had taught an ICT curriculum. Now, back when it was ICT, I don't know if any of you were around long enough to teach ICT. I was for a couple of years. Back when it was ICT, we were all sort of comfortable with that. We knew exactly what it was because we've been teaching it for years. The problem with the old ICT curriculum is it was far too focused on just simply using ICT, using technology. So most of our experience of IT when we were at school was sort of death by Microsoft Office. It was doing a spreadsheet, doing a PowerPoint, and if we were lucky, doing a bit of word art. Do you remember word art, where you could get your title to come in a semicircle in 5 different colours with a shadow? Hey, say, what is it, hot in here, or is it just me? And that's still happening now. A lot of children's experience of computing is sort of death by Microsoft Office, and it's not good enough anymore. At the time, I don't like to pay Michael Gove any sort of compliment, right? But if you got one thing right as EdSec, it was that change going from ICT to computing, because at the time in 2014, there were literally millions of jobs going unfulfilled because of a lack of digital skills. The workplace was crying out for software developers, coders, programmers, and so on. And that's why this this curriculum had a heavy focus on computer science, right? However, I would argue that the computer science curriculum we're teaching now, by the time children are of working age, coding will be almost an obsolete skill, because the AI at the minute can do most, if not all, the coding already, right? So there has to be a shift, and that's why I've tried to get ahead of the curve with this AI and building projects and link it into our computing, because it is going to be so prevalent, right? And I want to give you a bit of a heads up and give you a bit of an insight, because we are only at the beginning stage of this AI revolution, but some of the stuff we can also do is one of the most exciting yet sort of scary prospects. But what it'll come down to is all about how we choose to use it. And we've been through similar tech revolutions when Google first came along and when social media first came along. And, it's not really down to the technology. It's all about how we choose to use it. Now, I'm already seeing some people panicking about this AI stuff and sort of going, oh my God, it's going to be like iRobot, and it's going to be like Terminator when the robots are all going to kill. Look, I hate to break it to you, but what you see on a movie screen doesn't always end up being reality. The issue isn't with the technology itself. It's going to come down to humans and how we choose to use it. Okay. So how does AI work, or what is AI, artificial intelligence? Well, traditionally, computers cannot think for themselves. Computers traditionally will follow an algorithm, will follow a series of instructions that someone has coded, hence coding and programming and algorithms being really important. So up to this point, computers couldn't really think for themselves. They could only follow an algorithm that someone has coded. Whereas with AI now, you don't do as much coding. The computers can sort of think for themselves based on the data you feed it. So rather than the coding, this is more based on what data we feed the AI, right? And AI will only be as accurate as the data you feed it. So there is obviously discussions about bias with that, So there was news recently of an AI facial recognition software that wouldn't pick up people of color. And that was down to the fact that the data it's being fed was only from a certain demographic. So obviously you need to make sure that you feed in the AI vast amounts of reliable and varied data. So that's sort of how it works. And the interesting thing is, with artificial intelligence, what we can do now with it will always be the worst version. It's only ever going to get better and more accurate. So it'll never be 100% accurate, but as things develop, it'll become more and more accurate. Now, how do we introduce this to our pupils? Because pupils may well already be aware of AI. So this website here is always my go-to starting point if you wish to introduce AI to your pupils. It's a website called code.org/AI. Now, this website has some brilliant sort of not tutorials, but some brilliant videos discussing AI, how it sort of works, the potential positives and potential negatives as well. There is a brilliant interactive activity called AI for Oceans. So I've done this with my class and really enjoy it. It gives them a good insight into how sort of machine learning works. And when I did this lesson with my year fours, we ended up getting onto the conversation about whether AI is going to be a good thing or a bad thing. And we were talking about some industries where it will really benefit. So agriculture will be really beneficial because they're going to be able to use AI to predict weather patterns and sort of find the best time to, crop and farm and that sort of thing. The medical field, there's already AI technology that's able to recognize and pick up things on scans and x-rays that the human eye is unable to locate. So we may well get to a point where we can diagnose illnesses a lot earlier than what we could do before. We got onto the discussion about cars and driving. And I said to my class, I said to my pupils, children, likelihood is by the time you're old enough to drive, we may well own these driverless cars. You might not even learn how to drive, you lot. By the time you're old enough, we won't need to learn to drive because the cars will drive themselves. And I often say that to teachers when we talk about this on my training. And I'll sort of say, well, do you think that's going to be a good thing or a bad thing? Now, when I ask teachers that question, they always say bad. And I'll go, why? And they go, well, I can't get my computer to connect to my interactive whiteboard, let alone drive me places. And when I ask children that question, they also say bad. And I'll say, why? And they'll say, well, because there'll be more accidents. And I'm like, no. It'll be safer than it's ever been. 99.9% of roadside accidents are due to what? They're due to human error, because most people can't flipping drive on the road. I'm telling you now, I can't wait for driverless cars. I can't wait for the day when I've got to do a long drive down to, it's like on Monday, I'm supposed to be in Winchester from Manchester. It's a 4-hour drive. Can you imagine what it's going to be like when I can just get in a car, whack on Netflix and binge a series, and then by the time I've finished, I'm in Winchester without having to do it. Oh, dream stuff. So what is the biggest worry with AI here? And here's the interesting thing. You're all feeding data into AI all the time without realizing it, especially with cars. Do you ever go to a website and it asks you to verify that you're not a robot? And it shows you a grid of pictures. What are the pictures always of? It's always road related, traffic lights or cars, buses, whatever it might be, pedestrian cross, why is that? Why is it always road related? Well, that's the companies trying to gather data of our perception of the roads to then feed into the AI so it can recognize things itself. Yeah. Every time you watch something, you like something, you interact with something on a social media platform, you are feeding data into an algorithm that then predicts, an AI that then predicts what you will see next time you log on to that app, And I might have touched upon that in the previous session about being in control of your newsfeed algorithms rather than letting it control you. So you're interacting with it all the time. But the biggest worry for me is with jobs, because if you've got self-driving cars, what you're not going to need is you're not going to need taxi drivers, lorry drivers, driving instructors. Those jobs will go. Take the train strikes at the minute. Whenever you watch it on the news, people are always like, why are these train drivers striking? They're on 60 grand a year. Why are they striking about pay? Well, one, the government's only brought in legislation, or has brought in legislation to say you can only strike about pay. But the reason these train drivers, which are only a small fraction of rail workers anyway, but the reason the train strikers are striking is for job security. They know that these private companies are on the brink of putting self-driving trains on our tracks, and they won't think twice about replacing the human workforce because it means their profits will go through the roof. So there will come a point where we have to have a moral discussion about how far we allow AI to replace jobs. That won't be immediate. And I don't want to scare anyone, because I think teachers, we're safe for now. It's not AI that's going to replace us. It's just probably the government and their recruitment and retention crisis that will mean the education system falls apart. But I'm not going to bring that up. Here's the thing. AI won't replace your job, but teachers or people using AI likely will do. Now, as a teacher, I don't think there's anything I've come across that has genuinely or could genuinely reduce workload and improve well-being more than some of the AI tools available. And that's what I want us to focus on to begin with, right? Because teaching, unfortunately, you know, majority of teachers are working between 50 to 60 hours a week, double what they're contracted to, right? And before anyone says, yeah, but you get all the holidays, in my opinion, in most of the time, those holidays just gaslight teachers. You crawl to the end of every half term, right? Usually get ill for the first few days because you've just about kept it together. You finish for that half term break. First couple of days you're ill and you're just trying to get back those energy levels. You then tend to have a few days of the holiday where you do get to switch off and relax. And that's what gaslights you into thinking, do you know what? This teaching lark isn't that bad, is it, when I get these holidays? And then you just go through an endless cycle of that. So if the holidays were the be all and end all that the Daily Mail readers make out it is, and why teachers shouldn't be striking about pay or moaning about workload, then why would we have a recruitment and retention crisis where 1 in every 3 teachers leave the profession within the first 5 years? You know, this is serious. And we're at breaking point now. Despite the DfE announcing the other day, I saw this as I came back off holiday, celebrating that there are more teachers in our classrooms than ever before, right? There has been a 6% increase in the number of teachers now compared to 2010, which the government saw as a win and was celebrating. But what they failed to mention is, yes, there might have been a 6% increase in teachers, but there has been an 11% increase in pupils, right? So there are actually a lot more pupils in classrooms now than there were in 2010. So actually there's a bigger gap in teachers. 9 out of the past 10 years, the government have missed the recruitment targets. And we all know this. You might be working at a school that's struggling to recruit teachers. Teachers are leaving in their droves. And this is something I'm very passionate about, if you can't already tell. I'm passionate about helping teachers get a better work-life balance. If the government turned around tomorrow and said, look, we'll match the inflationary pay, we'll pay you what you're asking for, do I think that's going to solve the retention crisis? No, because pay is only one small element of a much bigger picture. And I think one of the biggest issues is with workload, right? Because teachers don't mind working hard. We're hard-working people. We don't mind working into the night, the odd night, if we know that the work we're going to do is going to have a direct impact on children's learning. However, so much of what's expected of us as teachers has absolutely nothing to do with the teaching and learning. And very few teachers are leaving the profession because of the teaching and learning, because of the time they spend with their children. They love that time. They wish it could just be around that. It's all the other faff. And most of this faff is just down to the fact that we have an education system that cannot trust teachers. And rather than trusting them to do the job they're capable of, we spend hours and hours and hours on pointless paperwork proving that we're doing the job so many of us are capable of doing, right? Now, when it comes to that sort of thing, I feel AI can really help, right? And I'm going to share with you a couple of useful tools. So I'm just looking at these tools for no other reason than how they can save us time and reduce workload. Now, the first one is this website, quillbot.com, right? Now, I don't know where you're up to with your report writing. A lot of you might have got it done already over the half term. Some of you might like to live dangerously and you've not even started yet, which, if that's you, respect. I don't know how you do it. But here's the thing, wherever you're up to, if you've got to do some editing, this website's brilliant. not just for reports, but for anything. If you're a teacher that struggles with sort of modeled text writing, this might help. So what you can do here is type in some, because here's the thing with reports, right? Is if we're being honest, no, I best not say this, but listen, right? What teachers don't do when it comes to writing reports is teachers don't write one set of reports when they're NQTs because they didn't know any better and no one told them any different. And because that was your first class who you went on such a journey with, who really molded you into the teacher you've become, that you slaved for months on those individual 30 reports. And then come the next year, when you've got to start them from scratch again, you're sort of going, oh my God, I've not got time for that. So you load up your NQT reports and you're like, right, Billy from NQT class, who's most like Billy this year? You just swap the names. We don't do that. Well, here's the thing. We may well finish a report like this. It has been a pleasure to teach Billy this year. I wish him every success in the future, right? Now, you can't use that for 30 reports, right? You've got to mix it up a little bit. And I mean, if you've not used that for at least one of your children's reports, can you even call yourself a teacher? But if I use this tool and tap on paraphrase, what it will do now is it will rewrite that sentence slightly differently for me. And if I don't like that one, I can try it again. Teaching Billy this year has been a delight. I hope he has a prosperous future. Copy and paste, job done. So that is just AI simply paraphrasing things to make my life a little bit easier. So that's quillbot.com, absolutely free to use. The next one, which I'm sure quite a few of you may well be familiar with, is ChatGPT. So ChatGPT is from a company called OpenAI, who are sort of the leaders in this AI revolution. Now, it took Netflix a year to get 1 million users. It took Instagram 7 months to get 1 million users. It took ChatGPT 5 days to get 1 million users, right? And I've not seen a tool that sort of disrupted so many different industries so quickly. Now, the only downside with this is it's absolutely free, and by all means, have a good play around with it because you can get some really great stuff out of it. However, there are times when there are literally millions of people trying to access it at the same time. It can be a little bit temperamental. And it's very open in that the way it's worked and the way people are a little bit apprehensive of it. The way I see this is this tool has essentially learned everything on the internet over the past decade up to 2022. So if you ask it for something that's happened last week, it won't know that. It's just been fed data of pretty much everything on the internet over the past decade. So this can save you time because when you ask it to do something, it essentially predicts what you think will be the best outcome based on everything it's learned and based on what you put in there. So how can you use this as a teacher? Well, let's take a task that might be quite time consuming for teachers that doesn't actually have an impact on teaching and learning necessarily, right? Lesson planning, right? Now, I know lesson planning is important, but it's all about how it's done. I'm the sort of teacher who can plan on a post-it note. So already I've not written a lesson plan for my maths tomorrow, right? Because I can do it on a post-it note. And I'm sort of trusted in my school that as long as if someone drops in tomorrow, which they probably won't do, but if they were to, and as long as they see a well-planned lesson, they're not that bothered about seeing lesson plan, which is the way it should be, right? I know some teachers love writing a dissertation for a lesson plan. And by all means, if that's how you do your thing, fill your boots. What I don't like is when it becomes a standard, you need to fill in this pro forma, you need to plan this certain way because that's policy, all that nonsense. Because what ends up happening is teachers can waste a lot of their PPA time padding and copying and pasting their planning when that time could be spent on more important stuff, right? And if you look at the inspection framework from Ofsted, and I'm not going to open up the can of worms about how I think Ofsted need to deep dive into a bin and how ridiculous those announcements they made yesterday about the reforms are just basically them desperate to justify their own existence, that they don't even realize the detrimental impact they're having on the profession. I mean, I don't know if you saw, I shouldn't go off on a tangent, but I'm fuming about it. The reforms rather than the easiest, simplest thing they can do, drop the grades, right? If you work in Wales, you won't get graded by Estyn, which is your Ofsted equivalent. But in England, no, they're keeping the grades because they think that's important, when actually that's the easiest way in which they can win back some of the profession. Because we know you cannot take a complex machine like a school and just take it down to one word, knowing the negative consequences that one word can have on well-being and your bloody job. The fact that if a school goes to inadequate based on something that one inspector who might have his own view on education deems, you can then lose your job to an account. It's a ridiculous system. But anyway, the irony of them saying 0.7, that investing money into a charity to support leaders well-being, it's a joke. Anyway, sorry. Oh, I just get very passionate about it, because if you read some of the messages I get sent, you'd realize why I have to be outspoken about it. But anyway, right, lesson planning, back to that. So what I can do here is I can ask it to write a lesson plan for year 3 with the learning objective. I know how to use full stops. I know that's probably not on the year 3 curriculum, but I'm thinking off the top of my head. Right, when I ask ChatGPT, it will write that lesson plan, right? Now, here's where the big caveat comes in. And this is really important, because I know some of you are going, oh my God. And rightly so, it is incredibly impressive. But the thing to always remember is what it gives you, the output it gives you, could be absolutely rubbish, could be awful. Because essentially what it's doing is it's just regurgitating stuff it's learned on the internet. But as a starting point, and for certain tasks, it is a game changer. It can save you so much time. Now, it is very open, and you will have to spend a lot of time putting the right things in to get the best things out. What I've been working on with this company is how to take all of that AI technology and harness it exactly for teachers. Like, how do you make it the best it can be for what teachers need? So this website is teachmateai.com, teachmateai.com. So this has taken similar sort of technology and just streamlined it, harnessed it. And what you can do with this sort of technology as well is you can feed in more specific education data. So we've been able to feed in curriculums. So it always refers to curriculums on certain tasks and other bits and bobs, so that you should get a better output than if you were to just jump in ChatGPT like I've done. Now, for every time you use the AI through this, there is a cost element. So this is a subscription model. And what I've been able to do is I've been able to get a couple of discount codes that I will share with you. So there you can either sign up to this as an individual teacher. So if you want to do that, you can. And if you use the discount code Mr. P CPD, you will get a month off. You'll get your first month free, right? What we've also built in, because we were getting lots of requests from schools, is a whole school subscription. So just down here, you can sign up as a whole school, meaning every member of staff gets a login. With that, I've got another code, which is Mr. P CPD School, and that will get you 10% off the whole school subscription. And the feedback we've been getting is that for a lot of schools, this is one of the best ways in which they're actually improving teachers' well-being, right? No point having a staff meeting about well-being when the best thing to do with a staff meeting on well-being is to cancel the staff meeting. The best way in which you can improve teachers' well-being is to reduce workload and give them time. Now, the reason I'm so passionate about this, and the reason that I'm sharing it and I'm really plugging it, is that's the most important thing to me. Now, when we did a pilot project with, I think 50 teachers, 50, 60 teachers, we found that they were saving on average 10 hours a week by using this tool, right? And if I can do that, if I can find a way to give teachers 10 hours a week, we don't need yoga staff meetings. We don't need to sit there doing Pilates, because I find that sort of stuff can be patronizing. What teachers need is time, because when it comes to well-being, it is so subjective. What works for me isn't going to necessarily work for you. For example, what's good for my well-being is I do a podcast with my brother, right? Two Mr. P's in a podcast, if you're interested. We share funny stories from teachers. And my brother, I honestly do not know how he functions as an adult, right? It makes me laugh a lot, some of the stuff he comes out with. I'm like, can you actually think, you know, sort of a version of sort of Carl Pilkington type thing. And that entertains me. It really makes me laugh. I can't turn around to any of you and be like, you're struggling with your well-being. Why not doing a podcast with your brother? Because you might not have a brother, or your brother might be normal. But that's what it's like with well-being at the minute in schools. One member of staff likes Pilates. Suddenly we're all there doing a Friday briefing session. No, thank you. Some of you might love yoga, Pilates, and by all means, fill your boots. I'm not judging you. But to force it on staff, because I guarantee most staff stuck in a staff well-being yoga session are probably in the hall doing the downward dog, farting in someone's face, thinking, I've got 4 sets of books to mark after this because there's another book scrutiny tomorrow. And schools don't see the irony in that. Some of you might love yoga. Some of you might just prefer to go home at a reasonable hour, crash on the couch, binge on a new Netflix series, stuffing your face full of Doritos. And that can be just as good for your well-being. What teachers need is the time to do it. And I honestly believe this sort of AI technology can be a great way to give teachers that time. So let's take a look. You'll see it split into 2 parts. You've got teacher tools. So these are more your admin type tasks. So you can see there we've got 2 report writer tools. There's a report writer that identifies strengths and areas for development. There's a curriculum report writer because some schools are still adamant on teachers writing, again, dissertations on what you've covered throughout the year. So it can do. Now, at present, this tool has helped teachers write over 100,000 reports so far. And it's not, because I've had a bit of feedback going, I can't believe teachers are not writing reports. You are. You're still at, and oh, it's not making it personal anymore. No, actually, the feedback we're getting is it's more personal, because within the report writer, you are identifying that individual child's strengths and areas for development. And what the AI does is just make it a cohesive paragraph for you to then check and sprinkle a bit more onto it. So it's not replacing it. It's just doing a bit of the heavy lifting. Because I guarantee most of you aren't being given time to write reports. You're expected to do it unpaid overtime. You know, you've got your lesson planning here. You've got all sorts, risk assessments. If you're going on a school trip, and that can be time consuming doing risk assessments, let the AI do it for you. There's some help as far as send support as well. There's all sorts, right? If you're an ECT, getting some brilliant feedback from ECTs where it's like, oh, I don't know what that means. And then they can just have it explained to them. I'll just give you a quick example. Letter writer, right? I want to write a letter to parents. Write a letter to parents about a NITS outbreak. Make it informal. Off we go, right? So you can see at the top there, there's a little orange bar, and that is just the AI working through. So it takes a matter of seconds, and then before long, you should then have the report for you. Okay, sorry, not the report, the letter. There we go. So I've now got that letter that, again, I can download as a Word doc, change, check. It just does the heavy lifting. Yeah. So there's some of the teacher tools, and then you've got your classroom tools as well. So within here, you've got more tools that you can actually use with your pupils. Model text generator. I want to write a, whatever it might be, an information text. I want to write an information text. I want you to include fronted adverbials, that, and it'll write the text for you. Yeah. Or I like the comprehension question generator. So I can either input text and get comprehension questions from it, or get it to write a text. So you can see here we've implemented different curriculums. I'll just do 150, so it's not too long. Manchester United treble season in 1999. Right, what a mixture of all the reading domains for year 5, create comprehension. That will not only write the comprehension text, but then give me questions for each reading domain and greater depth modeled answers. Okay, so while that's going, we'll talk through some of the other tools as well, such as obviously knowledge generators, differentiating text. We've got also, you can see all these different tools here. Character interview is quite good, because what that does is allows you to interview famous characters, and it will answer as if, so when we did the coronation, we interviewed King Charles. So we put King Charles in there. Question 1. Well, we could use that question there, couldn't we? Why did you divorce your first one? So that's quite good. But I think my favorite tool has to be, where is it? Where are you? Oh, where's it gone? Sure, it's explain it with a song. Love this one. So choose the curriculum. Year 6, concept to explain the journey of a river to the song of No Scrubs by TLC, and it will then rewrite that song. Let's just jump back to see if we've got our comprehension. There we go. We have got our text, word meaning, retrieval, inference, predicting, and then we've got our greater depth answers there as well, right? So again, we can download that, use it as a comprehension text. I did one the other day about the Prime drink by KSI, because the children are obsessed with it. So what I think is good about these sort of tools is you're creating resources specific to what you're teaching. You may well have subscriptions to other resource websites, and they might be great. But if you're doing a local history study, like we do a local history topic on Style Mill in Manchester, am I going to find decent resources on these resource websites? Probably not. Whereas now I can get them made. There we go. I don't want no river that's lazy. Follow the path that's great. Yeah, you get the. I'm not going to sing because obviously you'll all leave and your ears will be bleeding. So yeah, so if you do want to check that out, you can do. And the feedback we're getting is just really, it's just so. I had one message the other day basically saying that this website has kept a teacher in the profession. They were considering leaving, and having that as a tool now to help has meant they're going to stay for now, she said. But yeah, amazing. Now, what about AI tools with your students? Are there any useful AI tools? Because would I want children necessarily using ChatGPT? No. There's a lot of discussions further up school about obviously high school, college students using it to do all their coursework. Listen, I've not even considered that. I would say at primary school, children don't necessarily need to use it. I think more as a teacher tool, definitely. But there are then some AI tools that children can experiment with to understand how AI works and so on, or just inspire other areas of the curriculum. This website here, skybox.blockaidlabs.com, is amazing, right? What the children can do is describe a world, right? So I want a world where sweets and candy, a world built from sweets and candy. Let's give that a world built from sweets and candy, right? Now, obviously, the more detail of description you put in, the better the output will be. So give the children a task of describing a setting, put that in there, then the AI will create it, visualize it. You can choose the style you want. So let's say we want that as a cartoon. Tap generate, and that will now build a VR 360 world following your input. Now, obviously, I've not been too detailed here, so it might be all over the place. But the more detail you put in, the better output you'll get. So as a way of inspiring descriptive writing, the more detail it can be, the better it's going to be for the children. So let's see what comes out here. My internet's been a little bit slow today. Right, shall we come back to that a little bit? I'll give it another go. Right, we'll come back to that a little bit later. Okay, next website, next tool for you to note down, scribblediffusion.com. So this is a good again, AI experiment for children to use. What they can do is they can sketch a little picture here of absolutely anything. They can then tell the AI what the picture's supposed to be. And when they tap go, AI will turn that into a photograph for you. Oh, there we go. So there's our world built from sweets and candy as a cartoon. Maybe not the best. Let's see if we can do it in a different, let's go realistic. See what that comes out with. Right, scribble diffusion. There we go. There's my goofy owl. Let's try another one. There we go. A photo of a cat. See what comes out here. There we go. We've got our photo of a cat there. Yeah. And obviously you can save the image like that. So that's scribble diffusion. You can have lots of fun with that. And you can start opening discussions about how the AI is recognizing certain shapes and that's how it works. And going back to this website, there's quite a few, that video there on neural networks is how it explains that. Right. Autodraw.com is absolutely brilliant because what you can do here is the children can draw something. I use this a lot as well because my drawing's awful. So if I want different icons or pictures for presentations and that sort of thing, I can have a go at drawing. So let's say I have a go at drawing a picture of, well, see if it can guess. Now what you'll see is at the top, as I'm drawing, it's starting to try and guess what it thinks I'm drawing. Now the fact that it's got nothing similar to what I'm trying to draw here shows me just how dreadful my drawing skills. There we go. I was trying to draw a cat, and then at the top I can then just change it and bring in the picture there, to which we can then start filling the picture like so, and then you can save it. You can download it and save it as an image there. So autodraw.com allows you to turn your little doodles into quite impressive little icons. Another little experiment from Google is this one, Quick Draw. And this is actually helping feed data into the AI as well. So you draw something and see if the AI can guess what it is. So can I draw a violin in under 20 seconds? Right, let's give it a go. So, oh God, it's looking a bit dodgy there, isn't it? Yeah, got it. Got a piano. You get the idea. That started off pretty dodgy there, didn't it? There we go. We got it there. Right. So again, as a way of sort of experimenting and talking about how AI is working, it's recognizing the shapes, making those connections there based on the amount of data it's being fed. Right. This next one I absolutely love. And we've had loads of fun with this because you can either use doodles and drawings, bring them to life, or if you've got access to iPads, the children can use images and pictures of themselves. The website for this one is sketch.metademolab.com, right? So sketch.metademolab.com. Now, what this allows you to do is basically animate images and pictures. So if I upload a picture, so I've got this little doodle here that I've done, we tap on next, and then all we've got to do is, make sure everything's selected there. We then might just need to tidy it up and color in. Yeah, so I want the face like so. So we just need to tidy that up as well. Then we just put everything in place. So middle of the left eye, right eye, everything else is looking pretty good. And then you can animate it. So look, now I've got my picture running across. Or if I want the children to wave or want my picture to wave. And so the children can create these really fun little animations where they brought their drawings to life. And obviously we can share them if I want it jumping, doing the running man. So the children can create their own little animations there from their drawings or images. There I am doing the running man with what looks like a very broken, severely broken leg there, but you get the idea. So that's another example of AI bringing those pictures to life. And then 2 more. We've got Adobe Express. Now this, I don't know if any of you have ever come across the apps, Adobe Spark Video, Adobe Spark Page. I could do a whole session on the Adobe Express apps. If you've not, please do watch some of the tutorials on my website because they're brilliant. This tool, which is absolutely free to use, will allow children to make flyers, posters, infographics. You've got videos, you've got websites, all sorts, right? But it's starting to integrate some AI as well, especially text to image options. So what the children can do is, again, not necessarily with the sky blocks or as what's come out there. Oh, so that's it's not really a world built from sweets and candy there. I need to maybe be a little bit more specific, but this allows you to create pictures of absolutely anything. So I want a photo, realistic image of a teacher in space teaching a class of aliens. Okay, tap on generate, and using AI, it will now create that image for you. So you think of the potential to this as far as imagining stories, bringing stories to life. There we go. So that's our little image there. Now I can change it if I want it to be sort of digital art, or, you know, we can play around with that however we wish. If I want to, again, be more specific of a teacher at a whiteboard in space teaching a class of aliens, all the aliens have iPads, right? Let's see what that brings up. See if that changes it a little bit. Yeah, get the idea there. There's no iPads there, is there? But you get the idea. So again, we can have real fun with that. But then what you can also do on Adobe Express is then start using and adding text onto it. So we can add text, we can animate it. There's all different images. So you can really build in quite a lot of the digital art and sort of presentations. You can turn that into a meme or what, you know, poster, infographic, whatever it might be. So really, really good way of introducing AI, the sort of text to image stuff there as well. And the last website for now, and this is quite cool as a way of maybe hooking children into their writing or whatever it might be, is this website, fakeyou.com, which basically allows you, David Attenborough, which basically allows you to record a message as a famous person. Thank you, everyone, for attending this session with Mr. P. I hope you found it useful. Right? We then tap speak, and what will happen now is AI will make an audio recording of David Attenborough reading that sentence. So you might just need to wait because obviously we're using the free version here, but before long we should have that created. So if you wanted, well, there's all sorts. If you wanted Sonic the Hedgehog, SpongeBob, whoever it might be, I think you can get sort of, can you get Bart Simpson to do it and give you, you know, or if you want Iron Man, Tony Stark to give you a message there, you can do so. You know, if you wanted the children to write a set of instructions on something, you could have Tony Stark setting them off with that task, whatever it might be. The potential to it is absolutely amazing. I think if we use it in the right way, hopefully the way that I've shown you today, there's lots of ways in which it can spark creativity. It can bring children's ideas to life. You know, the fact that the children have to be more and more detailed with some of these ideas. So let's say a haunted forest. Let's see what comes up with that. Dun, 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 dun. It's just taken a while. But yeah, so I'll quickly whiz through those websites I've mentioned because I know I've gone very, very quickly. So we've got skybox.blockade labs is the one where you can create those 360 images. So to inspire a setting description, or writing a setting description and see if the AI can create something that the children were intending for. Scribble diffusion is where you can bring those images to life. We've got auto draw, quick draw, that sketch meta demo lab, and obviously Adobe Express in its beta phase. Right, that seems to be taking a while there. And like I say, with the ChatGPT and TeachMate, there for the teacher side of things, very passionate about these tools as a way of helping and supporting teachers, because I honestly believe you can be a really, really effective teacher and have a decent work-life balance. I do think that's possible. And I think if we embrace this technology in a positive way, it can really help. Because for me, it's all about giving teachers that time back to focus on the most important thing, which is teaching. And I feel like sometimes, because the workload is so heavy and so much time is spent on all these unnecessary paperwork tasks, in an ideal world, I'd get rid of the tasks. I think most of them we don't even need to do. But if we're still working in that environment, we might as well use our time more wisely, and hopefully these sort of things can help. Right, has that happened? No, not happening. Right, so that takes us to 6 o'clock, where we've put some time aside for any sort of questions, and it doesn't have to be about AI, by the way. If you want to ask any questions about anything else relating to sort of computing, ICT, or just anything teacher related, you're more than welcome to sort of pick my brains, and I will try my best to answer those questions if possible. Let's just stop that there. So is it going in the Q&A? I'll give a minute or so just for you to ask any other sort of questions while we see if that fake queue has. It's just not. Let's just refresh it and see if that'll work. Okay, so so many game changers. Thanks, Mr. P. Hoping I'll gain a few hours a week. Hot topic in my school at the minute is concern around pupils using AI for writing tasks. Don't want their writing creativity to suffer. This is a conversation we need to be having with parents to limit their use. Yeah. So I've not really experienced many of my pupils at primary. I think even primary age, I don't know how long we can keep it. Yeah, that's sort of the concern or the worry, I suppose. But I mean, I don't think it's going to stop children being creative. What I'd like to see is, if we've got AI that can tidy up the writing, do we need to waste children's time doing a SPAG test? Is one way I'd look at it. Because what the AI can't do yet, really, is it can't generate new creative ideas. What it tends to do is just regenerate stuff that's already out there. So I still think there'll be the need for that creativity and that new way of thinking, generating new ideas. And sort of with computing, especially, it's sort of moving away from necessarily the skill of coding, but still being able to solve problems. We're still going to need people to think of ways to solve problems. It just might be the AI does the coding for you. And that's maybe a similar sort of thing with writing, really, in that obviously we're still going to need to teach children how to write. That's not a debate. But do we need as much of a heavy focus on the SPAG stuff and waste children's time doing a SPAG test? Or can we use the AI to tidy up writing for children to then just come up with more creative ideas and focus more on the storytelling aspect of writing? And maybe, just maybe, for someone like myself, who, if you've been on any of my training before, you know that I'm very, very passionate about improving oracy, speaking and listening, and that sort of thing. It may well be, because I read this thing about how AI is going to be the death of coursework, and you're not going to be able to do coursework anymore. And I think, well, maybe there might be the opportunity where children have to demonstrate their learning in other ways other than written. And actually, if that's the case, where children might have to talk and present about their learning, that might make things more inclusive for certain children. Like I think about my son, Harry, who I will have mentioned on the first session, who's severely dyslexic. You ask him to do anything on paper and he really does struggle with it. You have a conversation with him and you soon realize he's one bright lad. So if AI can help him get his ideas down, surely that's going to be a benefit. So again, it's all about how we choose to use it. And I think it might just sort of move education away from necessarily everything being paper written based. Maybe children can share their learning in other more creative ways. Who knows? It's definitely a conversation to have. And we're still in those early days. But for me, I've really only focused on how it can help teachers with workload and those sort of things. How do other teachers you work with feel about using AI tools? I have had some skeptics. The thing to remember with teachers, generally speaking, is we are the slowest industry to change. So the chances are I'll still be talking about ChatGPT in about 5 years, and teachers will still be like, oh my, that's amazing. It's all about, you know, some teachers in my school have had all the reports written. I had one of my colleagues use TeachMate, all the class written in two hours, had the best half term she's ever had at WIT. I've got some who are sort of still a bit apprehensive about it. And I just feel like with the way that I'm using it, more fool you if you're not going to let it do some of the heavy lifting. Are there any AI tools that will be useful for SEN? So obviously a lot of tools already, and I did do quite a bit on the accessibility side of things in my first session. So if you do get the opportunity to go and watch that, there's a big chunk on loads of accessibility tools there. But the one that comes straight to mind is Seeing AI. So Seeing AI is an app you can get on your iPad or iPhone, which was created by Microsoft for blind and partly sighted people. But what it can do is it can read text to the children can hold the camera over some text, have it read to them. If you've got children with EAL, they can take pictures of things and it'll tell them what it is in English. Lots of options and opportunities there. So Seeing AI, definitely for that. Are there bilingual options on TeachMate for Welsh? We've fed the Welsh curriculum in, and we are going to be building some translation tools on TeachMate. But at the minute, everything generated is just in English at present. Yeah, so do you know how I can get a grant donation towards new iPads, computing equipment? I don't, unfortunately, Emma. If I did know, I'd be the first in line, to be honest. And that seems to be the biggest barrier at the minute. With budgets the way they are, it's more and more difficult for teachers and schools to implement a decent computing curriculum. Like I was in a school recently where they had 5 laptops. That's all they had, 5 laptops. And it's like, how can the government possibly think a school is able to implement a decent computing curriculum if they're not going to fund it adequately? But again, I'm not going to open the can of worms about how I think the government need to do one. But yeah, unfortunately, it is a struggle. I mean, long term, if you are using the technology to replace other things, it can reduce costs in other areas. So for example, if you're a school that uses Seesaw, the way that my school used Seesaw, and actually a school I worked with, I did a training day about 5 years ago, and then I did a follow-up training day about 6 months ago. And in the time since my first visit when I implemented Seesaw to my most recent visit, they have paid off the iPads through the money they've saved on photocopying. So rather than having to print and photocopy everything, they evidence a lot of the learning through the iPad on Seesaw, and they're saving money that way. But it's whether you can get that initial investment to then save the long term. There are other options as far as leasing or getting parents to contribute. But again, it depends on the demographic and where you are as a school. So I know one school who get parents to pay, I think it's £10 a month for the iPad, but then at the end of year 6, the children have that iPad to keep. So they're able to use it all the way through, it was key stage 2. And then by year 6, they get to keep that iPad. That may well be an option. Unfortunately, I don't know of any. There was something called Rocket Fund, but I don't know if that's still going. But yeah, you can have a Google of that Rocket Fund. I think what it does is if you do some fundraising, it matches the fundraising. Yeah. Right, Julie. Images, photographs created by these AI tools, would they be copyright free, able to use on websites? I'm going to say yes, they're copyright free because they are new images created. So they are not. I'm not 100% sure on this, but I'm assuming as it's a new piece of art created, it would be copyright free. I might have to check that, or I might even have to. Should I ask ChatGPT? Let's see what it's so. Let's just see what happens if I ask ChatGPT. If this is what it will say, if an image is created by AI through Midjourney, which is Midjourney or DALL-E, is it copyright free? Right, let's see what it says. So it says here, in many jurisdictions, can't even speak, copyright law generally recognizes the original creator as the copyright holder of a work, whether it's created by a human or an AI. In some cases, the copyright might be attributed to the human who trained the AI, while others, it's argued that the AI itself should be considered the creative or copywriter. Right, we might have to do a little bit more digging on that. But yeah, I'm not 100% sure. Not 100% sure. Right, images. Sorry, I've just answered that. Esther, will AI work for different teachers on the same report for secondary schools easily? Yeah. So it's fed, if you're using the curriculum report writer, it's fed in the whole curriculum right up to Key Stage 4. So it should work for secondary school teachers just as well as primary school. Have you had any feedback from parents? I've had a couple of comments on some of my posts online, and some parents don't like the idea of it. And I've not replied because I don't reply to any negativity online, because I've come to realize you can't win an argument online. It's pointless. What I will say is, if you think teachers over the years have sat there and written 13 individualized reports anyway, I mean, there was software in my NQT year where you literally built the report by copying statements in. So that's not personal anyway. And I know some schools are still using that. So, it's cutting any corners to save yourself time. If anything, I think this use of AI through the likes of TeachMate will make the reports more personalized, because the teachers recognizing those individual strengths and areas. All the AI does, it turn it into a cohesive paragraph. That's all. Does a bit of the heavy lifting. Any tips for approaching my head teacher? They're very skeptical, traditional. I see the benefits, but just can't seem to convince them. I'd demonstrate it. If you want to use that code for TeachMate, so you get an individual license for a month, and then you can show your head teacher how you're using it, how it's not actually, because ultimately it's not all you're doing is condensing Google and everything on the internet. The AI just streamline it so rather than you Googling and wasting time trying to find this source and this resource and this and this, the AI just, oh, this is what you want, this is what I can give you. It's essentially using the internet in a bit more of a focused way. That's all it is essentially. So there's nothing, as far as the way that I've shown you today, there's nothing to worry about in that in that respect. As we state on the website all the time, that you need to use your professional judgment, because the AI will not get it right 100% of the time. So there are the odd occasion where it might make the wrong assumption, or it might reference wrong bit of an older curriculum or whatever. There's bits where it doesn't always pick up things perfectly. So you still have to do your, you still have to use your professional judgment. But what it does is it just takes what would be maybe a half an hour Googling, researching task, and get that done in 30 seconds. Cheryl, can you repeat the discount code? Yes. So if you want the individual code, so you get a month's free use of all the tools as an individual teacher, it's Mr. P CPD. Put that discount code in when you go pro. If you want the whole school subscription, Mr. P CPD school. So Vicky, not a question, but looking forward to hearing your thoughts on the Ofsted reforms. I made a video about it on my socials yesterday. So if you want to read that or read it, watch it. Unfortunately, Adam's he's not broken his ankle, but he's got severe ligament damage. So he's in a world of pain. So we're not actually going to be doing a podcast this week, unfortunately. We'll be doing it next week. So, but yeah, if you want to know my feet, I mean, you can probably guess, but I do talk about it in a video I posted last night. Right, what is the name of your book? So I've got 2 books. I've got Put a Wet Paper Towel on It, which was the first book we released. That's available in paperback and hardback. This Is Your Own Time You're Wasting, which was released in hardback last year and will be released in paperback on July the 6th. Both are available from Amazon. And it's just they're just funny stories, observations, that sort of thing. Do you find that your pupils are already aware of AI? They are in my school because I've been teaching them about it. So again, that code.org/AI website is really useful as far as some of the online safety tips with it, and what to be aware of and that sort of thing. And yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I did mention some e-safety resources prior on the other session that I did. So I'm sure they're going to be building in some things as well. You might want to check out National Online Safety because they normally have some useful information posters for parents and teachers. So I'm sure they'll have done one about ChatGPT or about AI as well. I subscribed before the webinar. How can I use the code? Wendy, if you drop an email to team@teachmateai.com, that's team@teachmateai, they might be able to give you the discount code, or we might be able to give you a discount if you subscribe annually. I don't know, but I'm sure they'll be able to do that. So do you have any plans for a roadshow around schools? Would love to have you visit. Yeah, if you are interested in me coming and doing some training for your whole school, not just around AI, but anything tech related, if you want examples of accessibility options or how you can make writing more purposeful through technology or improve oracy, or just an overall how to best embed computing. If you go on my website, mrpict.com/CPD, all the details, all the sort of focuses, available dates, everything like that is available on the website. So you should be able to find all the. I've got a couple of other courses coming up. I've got a virtual CPD day on Friday, the 7th of July, which is a full day on Zoom that you can join, and that covers pretty much everything there as well. But yeah, I'm here, there, and everywhere, traveling the country part of the week, and then in my school part of the week as well. So if you are interested in having me lead train at your school, and there's a few options there as well, whether you do it just for your school, we can open it up to cluster of schools. There's lots of options there as well. Do you see AI being built into curriculums in the future? If so, any particular subjects? Potentially, yes. As I said before, it's slow. We're slow as a profession to move with the times. I mean, just teaching children about social media doesn't tend to happen in most schools. So whether I'm trying to stay ahead of it, and that's why I've tried to give that focus today, because I feel that we should be trying to be proactive and at the front of it, because I know there'll be some teachers who have all of a sudden are going from homework being dreadful to homework being of A-star A-level quality and not having a clue how that's happened. So it is important for us to stay ahead of the game with it. I think definitely if things go right at the next election and the new government come in who, value education, there likely will be a new curriculum. And I definitely think AI will be in computing for definite. And it may influence the English curriculum to again move away from the obsession with spag and instead focus more on the creativity, storytelling. Who knows? But yeah, I think definitely it needs to be referenced. And that's why I put it in my computing scheme of work, because for me, we want children to be ready for the world they're growing up into. If we carry on teaching a curriculum that AI can already do, you know, is that best helping the children? Whereas if we're teaching children about how AI works, recognizing examples of it in their everyday lives, and even teaching children how to build their own AI, you know, hopefully will help them with whatever they want to be when they grow up. Does TeachMate work for the Scottish curriculum? Yes, that is fed in. So when you go on to some of the tools, you can reference the Scottish curriculum, the curriculum for excellence in Scotland. So yeah, the curriculums we've built in so far are English, Wales, the Scottish curriculum, the Irish curriculum, the Northern Irish curriculum, and obviously the EYFF frameworks in England and Wales as well. The code for TeachMate AI. So Mr. PCPD is individually, and a Mr. PCPD school is your whole school code there. And then how can you educate pupils about using AI tools responsibly, not going from a low mark to an A star? I mean, obviously educating them about, you know, I've seen some funny examples of where teachers are like, oh, AI is going to ruin education. And then children are turning essays where literally the first sentence says, as an AI model, I am not able to do this, but this is how it can help. So obviously for me, it's sort of looking at it as more of an assistant, hence TeachMate, you know, things, it can do some of the heavy lifting, but we always want to make things, you know, individual to our writing style. And yeah, it might be able to create a couple of references or generate some ideas or reference points, but then we can put it into our own style of writing. It's just going to be really interesting to see how it does affect education, because ultimately we're not going to be able to do things the way we've always done them. Coursework, like I'll give you an example. So I did a training session with trainee teachers, like at a skit. I did training at a skit, and I talked about sort of ChatGPT, and one teacher got in touch with me recently and said she's used it with some of her assignments at uni, and she's managed, she either does it herself or she uses ChatGPT. When she does it herself, she gets a relatively low mark and no one says anything. When she gets ChatGPT to help her, the uni lecturer goes on about how it's the best assignment she's ever seen in her life, you know. And that's so it's do we necessarily need to do we need to look at moving away from those traditional forms of coursework and assignments? And I don't know, it's a discussion maybe at a later date, possibly when we've had a bit more time to really digest it. Is it worth talking to pupils about careers which use AI? Definitely. Like I say, I don't think AI is going to replace us, or not us, but you know, you're not going to lose your job to AI, but the likelihood is you'll lose your job to someone using AI, is what I've been reading. What was the name of the app? The Adobe tool. So it's Adobe Express Beta. The actual AI stuff is Adobe Firefly. Not AI related, but any good websites, tips for teacher wellbeing. Pilates doesn't do it for me either. It's one of them. I've been asked to do loads of stuff around wellbeing, and I always feel a little bit of I don't feel like I'm probably the best person to talk about it. I think it's so subjective in my eyes. So, you know, you could ask ChatGPT, and we're going to build some wellbeing tools in TeachMate that might suggest ways in which you can improve things, give yourself a bit more of a structure with certain tasks. And, you know, that ChatGPT doesn't have to be teaching related. So if you get home tonight and you look in your fridge and you've got a few ingredients and you don't know what it can make, or you think, oh, I can't really be bothered, go on ChatGPT and say, look, I've got this, 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 and this. What meal can I make? And it'll come up with a recipe for you. I got ChatGPT to write a murder mystery script for a dinner party for 6 people, and it wrote the whole script. I've just got to find 6 friends now. But when I get there, it'd be great for stuff like that. So I mean, obviously there's quite a few people on social media that you can follow that might help with the well-being side of things. For me, you know, like I say, the podcast is a nice distraction. And I know that for a lot of teachers, a couple of people mentioned there that they love the podcast, so that might help. But at the same time, I know there's loads of people that would hate to listen to that podcast. So it's all about finding what I always say is it's having something that allows you to switch off from teaching, and whether that be sports, exercise, whatever it might be, and committing to that, you know. So I know some teachers like to be part of an amateur dramatics, which is great. Others will do the sports. I mean, I'm heavily involved in my kids' sports teams, and that gives me a really welcome distraction from everything teacher related. But I know some people don't like sports, so it's finding something you enjoy that's not necessarily education related that you can really dedicate yourself to as a way of switching off. Is probably my best piece of advice with that. Oh, more questions coming in. Right. What are your views on teaching outside of year groups? Child is very clever in year 2, but try not to push into high year groups, but expand on the current school policy. Not you've stumped me there, Nigel, a little bit. I suppose it depends on the topic and subject itself, isn't it? So, you know, depending on what subject we're talking about here, maths, it's a little bit trickier. And obviously there might be resources on things like White Rose Maths that can really challenge children. Obviously, if it's history, geography, you can then look at topics that aren't covered in other year groups to really push the children, you know, the child that way. But other than that, I'm not. But this is where technology can help. So if children can, you know, express their learning in one format through technology, can they create a video explaining the year 2 curriculum? Then can they become sort of experts or almost teachers and create a step-by-step tutorial as a video on other apps, other tools to help other children in class? That could be an extra challenge where you're bringing in other elements of the curriculum, oral speaking, that sort of thing. So yeah, you've just said with maths there. So it may well be that I've done it before, getting children to become the teacher. Can you make a step-by-step tutorial explaining how to do this method for the children in the class? Right. Any disaster stories from using AI in class? Not yet. But if you've got one, send it through. We'll share it on the podcast. You know, it's being very aware to always check everything it generates, because like I say, it may sometimes misquote things or not quite get it as accurate. So it's always checking it and adjusting anything that it does create. Otherwise, you might find yourself in a bit of a sticky situation. Any advice for TAs using AI helping in a one-to-one situation? So, you know, other examples of AI are things like Siri uses AI. There's dictation tools on your devices that use AI. And they, again, if you watch my first session that I did last year, there's loads of examples of those accessibility tools which do use AI to help. I'm very passionate about this because I've seen it with my own children and how technology can really remove barriers for certain children. So if you want more ideas on the accessibility side of things, do go and watch that first session that I did, because I covered quite a few there. Right, I'll finish on this one. A great session tonight. Thank you for all the ideas. I'll definitely take some of these back to school. I'll keep telling my teachers to work smarter, not harder. I hope you had a great time in Florida. Thank you very, very much, Tony. It's a lovely message to finish on there. I hope you've all found the session useful, and you can take at least one thing back to class, and it can help in lots of different ways. So thank you very, very much. And yeah, hopefully see you all again very, very soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Lee. I can see that some of our members have found it so useful already, and I know I've learned a good amount of things from the session this evening. So thank you very much. And to all of our members that are still with us, feel free to send us some feedback on email or on social media. If you want us to pass anything on directly to Mr. P, we can absolutely do that. And for those of you that weren't around for our teacher talk in September last year, you can go and watch that on our Teachers Club YouTube channel. And then, as I said at the beginning of this session, in about about a week's time, surely over the next week, this session itself will have been uploaded to that channel as well, so you can check that out. If you want to hold off until it's until we announce that on social media, feel free, but the link will be popped up there when it's available to view. Again, just a last thank you so much for everyone that's been in attendance this evening. Thank you for being valued Teachers Club members, and we hope to see some great feedback come across on social media, and we hope to hear from you soon. Also, do keep an eye out for those resources. I'm sure they'll be ICT Mr. P approved. Again, I hope you all have a lovely evening, and thank you for joining us. We'll let you go now. Thanks
Cheers,
so much.
thanks very much.
Thanks so
Take
much,
care.
everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.